Okay, Universal, just go ahead and admit it. The Fast and the Furious franchise is a 10-episode prequel to the Black Adam movie. You're not fooling me. So The Fate of the Furious is the 8th installment in the long-running Fast and Furious franchise, and this chapter finds our family on opposite ends of the coin. You got Dom, the leader, the badass, the main hero of our story, switching sides over to the villains. He's teamed up with Charlize Theron, who is Cypher, this big badass cyber terrorist, and now you have everybody else in the family trying to figure out why Dom is doing this, and trying to stop him, and also trying to bring him back home to his family. Hey, for those of you daredevils out there, you want a good drinking game? Watch a Fast and the Furious movie, fill up a bunch of shot glasses, and every time you hear the word family, take a shot. As a matter of fact, fill up a quarter of a shot. It doesn't matter, because by the halfway point of these movies, you're gonna be fucking dead.
Let me ask you something, Dom. What's the best thing in your life?
Family.
This is going to be a spoiler-free review, people, but hang out after my rating. I am going to get into a few spoilers because there's some things that I have to discuss about this movie, and I don't want to ruin it for those of you who are just amped up to see this. I don't. The Fast and the Furious franchise is one of those franchises where you know where you stand with it. You're either on board for it or you're not. If you didn't like the previous ones, you're not going to like this one. If you love the previous ones, you're probably going to enjoy this one. I have kind of an interesting relationship with this series myself. It came out when I was a kid and it was really popular. I wasn't quite on the Fast and Furious train until the 5th one. The 5th one came out and I was like, that is awesome. Now I'm on board for this franchise 100%. Give me more of that. And ever since Fast 5, the craziness, the ridiculousness, the superhero ridiculousness of these characters has skyrocketed with each individual installment, and my enjoyment of the series has went down with each individual installment. Still enjoy the movies for the most part, but as it gets dumber, I like it less. And to be honest, just to go ahead and get it out there, The Fate of the Furious has continued that trend of getting dumber and my enjoyment going a little bit less than the previous installment. Can we just talk about that title for a second? The Fate of the Furious. I mean, even the titles are getting dumber in these movies. I would love to see the scratch sheet that the producers of this movie had when they were trying to think of a title for this. Just Fast 8? No. Furious 8? Nah, it's too predictable. The Fateful 8? Nah, too Tarantino. Fast and Furiosa. No, we'll get sued. Okay, well, let's just put F and an 8 together. Oh, wait, you're telling me it's F8 because this is the 8th installment and it also reads Fate? That's brilliant! No, it's not. So starting off with the positives of The Fate of the Furious. God, I can't get used to saying that. Like I said before, if you enjoyed the previous installments in this, there is plenty to grab onto in this installment that you're going to enjoy. It's big, dumb, overblown, ridiculous action sequences stacked on top of each other for 2 hours. And the first action sequence we get in this is one of my positives because I'm glad we actually got to see a racing scene again. I feel like it's been forever since we've seen a racing scene in a Fast and the Furious movie, which is just weird. But they open up with a nice little cool race in the middle of Havana, Cuba, and it was entertaining to watch. It kind of felt like more of a throwback to the first 4 movies, and I enjoyed that. As far as the characters, the biggest praise I'm going to give is for Charlize Theron. She is an awesome villain. She's one of the better villains we've had in this franchise because we haven't had too many. She's sinister, she's cold, you believe that she is completely 100% evil, and you can't wait for Dom or The Rock or anybody who can get a hold of her just to snap her neck because she is just vile in this. I don't think we've yet had a villain this freaking ruthless in this franchise, so I enjoyed that because they really need to up the villains from the past couple of movies. I felt like Statham was really underused in the previous movie, and Luke Evans, while he was cool, I could have gotten a little bit more from him too. I like Charlize Theron as a villain very much. The other character I want to give a lot of praise to is Jason Statham's character because this, to me, even though there is a negative with this character I'm going to get into later, is the way that they should have used Statham in the previous movie. You get to see Statham doing what Statham does in this. Kicking ass, having a lot of badass fight scenes with numerous people, flipping around, doing parkour. That is the Jason Statham we know and love. That's what we want to see. And you get it in The Fate of the Furious. And the other small praise I'm going to give as far as characters in this is I feel like Vin Diesel was a little bit less wooden in this movie than he's been in the previous couple of installments. He's the cornerstone of this franchise. Now with Paul Walker unfortunately being dead, he's really the only main character of this. So the story, the movie really focuses on his character now. And I feel like the past couple of movies, he's kind of just phoned it in. He knows that it's going to make money. He knows it's going to be critic-proof, so he shows up. He talks like Vin Diesel. He says family about 3,000 times. Does some cool car shit, and then walks into the next installment. I feel like we got a little bit more emotion from him in this one. We got a little bit more genuine acting from him, and I enjoyed some of his scenes, especially with Charlize Theron. They had a really good back and forth with him being basically blackmailed to be around her, but also having to do everything that she says. It's a really cool dynamic that they have throughout this movie.
I think I need to remind you why you chose to be here.
I got no choice.
Unfortunately, guys, that's the end of my positives for The Fate of the Furious. Now, as far as the negatives, we'll start with the story. The story in The Fate of the Furious goes down a beaten path that we have been down numerous times in this franchise. How many times are we going to be chasing a member of the family who has strayed off the beaten path and he's going into darkness and we got to pull them back? They did it with Dom in the first couple of movies. They did it with Letty in Fast and Furious 6, and now we are retreading familiar territory, and it just felt like a really quickly thrown together excuse to put another Fast and the Furious movie out there for us. Like I said, Paul Walker unfortunately isn't with us anymore, so they had to find some way to get this story going without his very important piece of the puzzle being there, and they did not do it well in this. This is just familiar territory with an excuse to put more action scenes out there. And even once that story gets going, there's quite a few reveals in this movie that they meant to be shocks, especially the reason why Vin Diesel is actually blackmailed in the first place to help Charlize Theron's character. But each of those little reveals and the big reveal was telegraphed way too much. It was really predictable, and some of them really didn't even make sense as far as the timeline of these movies. And as if the initial story that sets this movie off isn't bad enough, the writing is terrible in this one. Despite how dumb the story can be, and despite how dumb and ridiculous and over the top the action scenes can be, you're always enjoying these movies because of the dynamic between all the different people in this group, from The Rock to Tyrese to Paul Walker to Vin Diesel. They always have really good back and forth. There's always a lot of really good humor, a lot of genuinely good written dialogue that really makes you believe in their family and their love and their dynamic with each other, and that is non-existent in this movie. The really badly written dialogue and the humor in this is god-awful. Not a single joke in this entire frickin' movie landed for me.
I will beat your ass like a Cherokee drum.
There is an entire sequence in this about 5 to 7 minutes long of The Rock's character coaching his daughter's soccer team that I know when they wrote they thought it was going to be genuinely hilarious and people were going to be on the floor rolling around dying from laughter with how funny and ridiculous this scene was. But it was ridiculous to the point of being just cringeworthy. I was rolling my eyes the entire time because it's just joke after joke after joke, and they are all flat. They are so flat, it's like The Rock ran his SUV over them. Okay, so the story's not so good. The humor and the writing between these characters isn't so good. At least we get some awesome action sequences, right? Wrong. Not only did the trailers of this movie show every single action sequence almost in its entirety already before you get to see the damn movie, but none of the action sequences to me were all that well conceived. None of them were really all that fun or interesting or awe-inspiring, and some of them weren't even shot well, especially the fight sequences in this. There's a prison sequence with The Rock and Jason Statham trying to escape, beating people up left and right, where it felt like every time they went to do a really cool hand-to-hand combat sequence, it was shaky cam and quick cuts where you could barely tell what the hell was going on. There's a couple of hand-to-hand fights later on in the movie that you couldn't tell what was going on. I'm getting to the point where I'm really just fed up with the shaky cam thing. When you have a movie come out like John Wick, you're no longer tolerant of things like this, because it's like, you can do great action sequences, you can do great hand-to-hand combat. This is no longer acceptable. This is bullshit. This is cheap filmmaking, and it's not enjoyable. I can't tell what's going on. I'm not engaged in it. But to be honest, even if some of these action sequences in here were better conceived and better shot, this series has gone so far beyond the level of the average person being able to suspend their disbelief that it's no longer enjoyable for me. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong, you gotta suspend quite a bit of disbelief in any Fast and the Furious movie you watch, but in The Fate of the Furious, you gotta scoop your own fucking brain out and put it in your empty popcorn bucket to be able to get through this without asking 1,000 questions. It's that ridiculous. There's a scene where Vin Diesel leaps out of a moving vehicle that's going at least 150 miles an hour onto hard-ass concrete with a sleeveless shirt and doesn't have a single scratch, bruise, drip of blood, road rash, nothing. He gets engulfed in flames twice Not a single mark. You've seen the scene in the trailer when he's in his car and 5 other vehicles are launching these harpoons into his car to keep him steady. How does he get away? By punching his door off and flinging it into the Rock's vehicle that's at least 100 feet away. And then you have another action sequence which was shown in the trailer where Ludacris hits his button, they're escaping after this heist, and this cannonball comes out of nowhere and starts taking out all of their enemy vehicles. And it completely blows your mind when you watch the way that it's actually shot in its full sequence, because if you know anything about a fulcrum, it only touches the lowest point once and then it swings back up. Not in the Fast and the Furious franchise. Apparently it swings down and then goes for about a quarter mile, touching the ground by about an inch, and then swings back up. And I saw that and I'm like, that is not how physics works at all. And then what should have been the coolest sequence in this movie, which again was shown in the trailer, is when Charlize Theron digitally takes over about 1,000 cars in New York City from her laptop. They take over the internal CPU chip, the car turns into auto drive, and you have this parade of 1,000 cars chasing after this motorcade that they're trying to take this suitcase out of. Now, while that would be a cool sequence because you have thousands of cars like Hot Wheels just crashing into everything all over New York City, the question that I have is, if you can digitally take over every single vehicle at the touch of a button and anywhere in the world that you want, why don't you just take over the motorcade you're chasing down and make them stop? Does that make any sense to you? And then you have The Rock's character, and whatever superpowers Vin Diesel left over in a little bag of tricks that he didn't pick for himself, everything that was left over went to The Rock. This guy is taking furniture that is bolted into a concrete wall and tearing it off the wall. He's lifting 200-pound men like they're made out of fucking styrofoam.
What about your daughter? You know, if you're not going to do it for your country, at least do it for your kid.
Big mistake, kid.
He's got 3 people who are in full riot gear and shields that he knocks through like a goddamn cannonball. Rubber bullets are bouncing off of him like M&Ms. This guy is invincible now. And it really bums me out that that's the direction that they've taken his character, because I love the direction they went with him in Fast 5. He was the best part of that movie. And you go from having one of the most brutal and gritty fights that I've ever seen in an action movie to pushing a torpedo with your bare hands.
Is that a torpedo? Take the wheel. What? This is crazy!
Okay, movie, whatever. And then when you move on to the other family members, you know, Letty, Tyrese's character, Ludacris's character, the writing does not help those characters at all in this, but this movie really solidifies how useless they are with Dom in the mix. Dom does just fine with none of them on his side, and it almost seems like, in reality, they're holding him back whenever they're working with him because they can't do shit to stop him. And the other issues I had as far as characters in this, even though I praised both Charlize Theron and Statham's characters as being the best characters in this, there's 2 problems that I have with them. First of all, with Charlize Theron's character, you have an actress who is experienced in movies like this. The Italian Job, Mad Max, and she did phenomenal in those, and you don't show her driving or doing an action sequence at all in this. She's just on the headphones, telling Vin Diesel what to do, and even though she was great at that, I wanted more from her. I wanted to see her in a car chasing after people. I wanted to see her in a fight scene, and I didn't get any of that in this. And maybe that's the direction they're going with that character, that she's so badass, she doesn't have to lift a finger because everyone else does it for her. But I would have preferred to see more kick-ass Charlize Theron because she's capable of it and she's shown it before. And with Statham's character, even though they utilized Jason Statham as an actor to his strengths in this movie, what they did with his character really pissed me off because they solidified definitively at the end of Fast 6 and throughout Furious 7 that he is a villain. He is evil. He kills people left and right. He killed Han, one of the best crew members that's been in this franchise, and they totally forgive, wash away, and forget about all of that because Kurt Russell tells them that they have to work with him. And then throughout this movie, they start to accept him as part of this family, and I'm sure going on in the series, he's going to be part of the group now. That makes no sense to me. He killed one of your own. He killed one of your own, and you're hanging out with the guy. That makes no sense. And the last character that I want to touch on just a little bit is Scott Eastwood's character. Nothing but respect to your dad, dude, but you are not a capable actor. We've seen this guy be in small little roles that's exactly like his role in this throughout the past couple of years, and he just has no acting ability, no charisma, no screen presence whatsoever, especially compared to his dad. And his only purpose in this movie is to somewhat fill in the Paul Walker void of the younger guy and the good-looking guy, but he's only in here so that they can talk shit about him and make fun of how stupid he is with little cheesy one-liners and cheesy jokes, and it got annoying after a while. I'm like, I'm done with Scott Eastwood. It's not working for me. Let's just go back to chasing Dom. And aside from the weak story, aside from the weak action sequences, aside from the ridiculousness that they expect you to believe and suspend your disbelief for, and despite some of the really bad character choices that they make in this movie, the one person who I expected to show up who did not show up was F. Gary Gray, the director. Now, if you've seen this guy's filmography, he is a phenomenal director. He's got some great movies underneath his belt in many different genres. He did The First Friday, which is one of the best comedies of all time, which begs the question why the humor is so weak in this. Then you have movies like The Negotiator, like Straight Outta Compton. He's a great director, and he really films action scenes and action movies really well. And he does this really cool, dark, gritty tone that goes throughout his entire filmography. And none of that is in this movie. And to be fair, I had the same criticism with James Wan in Furious 7 because I didn't feel James Wan at all in that movie. But he also had the gigantic hurdle of filming the rest of that movie and making it work without Paul Walker there. And for what he had to work with, Furious 7 turned out damn good. Now, unfortunately for F. Gary Gray, he does not have that get-out-of-jail-free card. And I don't know if that's his fault or if it's the studio's fault that this movie doesn't have his style or his signature anywhere on it. Because on one end, I want to believe that maybe the studio is telling him, make it look exactly like the other movies. But at the other side of it, why would you go out and get F. Gary Gray, such a well-known, acclaimed director, to do this if you just want somebody to come in and copy as much of Justin Lin's style as possible? So I'm no longer going to get excited about any further Fast and the Furious movies based off of who is directing it, because both James Wan and F. Gary Gray, phenomenal directors, didn't leave their signature style or do anything new or inventive with this franchise. So I'm just going to expect Justin Lin movies regardless who the hell's directing it. So to wrap all this up, guys, The Fate of the Furious is yet another capable sequel somewhat of the Fast and the Furious franchise. Like I said in the opening, if you don't like these movies, you're not going to like this one. If you're a huge fan of the other movies, you're going to love this one. Maybe a little bit less than the past three. I don't see anybody saying that this one is better than 5, 6, or 7. I really don't. But if you're like me and you love Fast 5, and as these sequels have gotten exponentially dumber, your enjoyment has gone down, you're going to end up with the same thoughts that I have about The Fate of the Furious. Somewhat enjoyable if you shut your brain off or remove your brain completely, but this movie is fast and furiously going downhill. So if you're a huge fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, you've already seen this movie, you've already done donuts in the parking lot and shot out of there at 90 miles an hour talking about how awesome this is. But unfortunately for everybody else, I think this is a step down from Furious 7, which I already thought was a step down from Furious 6, and a step down from Fast 5. It's an enjoyable enough time, but nothing that you need to spring out a bunch of money for. So check it out on Netflix. Alright people, time to talk some spoilers. Like I said before, if you have not seen The Fate of the Furious yet, go ahead and pause this video, go check out the movie, then come back and watch the rest of this review. But if you've seen the movie or if you don't care about spoilers, here we go. So let's talk about the big one. The reason why Dom betrays his family, the reason why he is stuck working with Charlize Theron, his ex-girlfriend who he dated at the end of Fast 5 and into Fast and Furious 6 before he realized that Letty was still alive, got pregnant, had a baby boy, and now they are both imprisoned. That's why he's helping Charlize Theron. And here's the problem. When you introduce that story element, it makes you question the entire timeline of 5, 6, and 7. Now you're wondering, okay, when exactly did Letty and Dom get married? When exactly did he break off this relationship with Elena? When exactly did this happen? You know, that doesn't make sense. The kid should be older. You don't need to think that extreme about a Fast and the Furious franchise, and it drove me nuts that now they introduced that. So now I'm questioning where the hell all these movies fit together, how many years or months or weeks or days is in between 5 and 6 and 6 and 7 and 7 and 8. It just confused me. On the positive side, it is a nice human element that they brought to Dom. Like I said, that gave some of the really good scenes when I was talking non-spoiler about him getting a lot more emotional in this and giving you a lot more genuine acting. I liked that element of it. But to me, it was a little bit too confusing for what it was trying to do. And aside from that, these women in the Fast and the Furious franchise are the most nice, forgiving women ever, because not only did she make no attempt to tell Dom that she was pregnant or had a kid until now, and she said something about, oh, we got kidnapped the day that I was going to tell you, but whatever. And then after they get back and everything's resolved and Letty finds out about it, she's not jealous or mad or upset at all that now he has this child from another woman, when they said in the beginning of this movie, oh, I think we should have a child. And that also telegraphed that twist way too much for me, because as soon as they said that, I said, he's got a kid. And that's what Charlize Theron's found. She just moves on and accepts it as fact, and she's like, oh, don't worry, he'll be here soon. No, there's no girlfriend or wife or love interest in the world who is going to just accept a child that you had with another woman. I understand that she was in a coma or she had amnesia and all that other shit. Yes, but even the most forgiving woman in the world would have been a little bit pissed off about that. And she wasn't mad at all. And then you have the other big reveal in this, which they also telegraphed way too much with Helen Mirren's character, because I found it a little bit funny that why is Helen Mirren talking exactly like Jason Statham talks? I digress. You get the two characters who are flying in the little paraglider suits. They launch into that airplane that Charlize Theron is hidden on. You reveal one of them to be Jason Statham, who, surprise, surprise, didn't actually die when he got shot, because nobody dies in these movies unless the script says so. And then you have Luke Evans.
It's impossible!
Back from the dead. Back from his body-destroying injury from Fast and the Furious 6, and all he has is a little bit of facial scar. But now, you've not only taken Jason Statham and turned him into a good guy, but you've basically turned Luke Evans into a good guy as well. They didn't solidify that at the end of this movie that Luke Evans is going to be joining the family too, but he's right there working alongside him, doing good deeds, and he's not really doing anything evil either. And it was just weird. Like, again, can any great villain characters in this franchise stay great villain characters? I believe probably in Fast and Furious 9 or even Fast and Furious 10, Charlize Theron is going to join the family too. And we can all join hands and hug in one big, bad, good guy family. And then you have the reveal that when Vin Diesel was looking underneath his hood and he walked away for a few seconds to talk to Helen Mirren's character, that he actually had this huge, elaborate plot to finally get Charlize Theron's character. You got the two Hispanic characters from Fast 4 and Fast 5 come back for just a little bit. They were blocking with that van and helping him do some things. And you also have the guy from the very beginning, the Havana, Cuba race. He was helping him out. And that begs the question, if you're able to get that much of a message out to so many different people, those two characters from the other two movies, you got the one guy from the beginning of this movie, you can contact all of them, plus have time to go to Helen Mirren and come up with all these things and get all this communication out there. How are you not able to get one message to your family, your team, that there's something going on, do not hunt me down, let me do this, everything's okay, I'm not a bad guy? That makes absolutely no sense. And again, that just goes back to really bad writing. And the last little tiny detail that I want to talk about here that made me cringe just a little bit, and I might be nitpicking the hell out of this movie, guys, and I will fully admit to that. If you think I am, please do not hesitate to tell me in the comment section below if you think I'm being a little bit too harsh. But I'm going to throw it out there just to see if anybody else cringed just a little bit like I did. The very ending of this movie, when they tease from the middle section about, oh, well, you know, his middle name is Marco, but I wanted his father to name him. From that scene until the end, I was like, please do not tell me he's going to name him Brian or Paul, because that's going to be way too on the nose. And Paul Walker's character Brian is still technically alive in this series, so it makes no sense. And then you get to the end, and he goes, all right, guys, let me introduce you to Brian. And I was like, oh my god, they actually did it. Did anybody else cringe during that? Like I said, Paul Walker's character is still alive in this, so why he's paying tribute to Paul Walker's character inside the movie universe is just weird to me. And again, another thing that was a small little reveal that was meant to be this big aha moment that they telegraphed way too much from the middle of this movie. These movies are critic-proof, everybody. They know that they're critic-proof. It doesn't matter how much bitching I do, how much bitching you do, how much bitching the entire world does about the ridiculousness or the story problems or the writing problems. They know everybody's going to go out in droves to see it because it's got Fast or Furious or some variation of that damn title on the poster. They know it doesn't matter. They're going to get their money back. And this is the series starting to become a victim of its own success because the writing is making it to where the movie is just so confusing, so convoluted, and so question-raising that it's hard to just shut your brain off and go along for the ride because it just constantly racks your mind about things that make no sense whatsoever. So what did you guys think of The Fate of the Furious? What's your favorite Fast and Furious movie? Do you think the movies have gone downhill as they've gotten dumber, or do you enjoy that direction and you think Fate of the Furious is even better than Furious 7? Put all of your thoughts on the franchise, the characters, and the Fate of the Furious down in the comment section below, and we'll talk about it. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button, that way you get to come back and see me next time. Also check out my review series of the Alien franchise with Durbin from Durbania. We've already done Alien and Aliens. This Tuesday we've got Alien 3 on his channel and Alien Resurrection on this channel. So hit the subscribe button, come back and check that out, and go click the subscribe button over on Durbin's channel so you can see all of our videos. And if you want to check out some more of our videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.